Everybody loved Mr. Schmidt. Not only was he a skilled bus driver, but he was also fearless. It didn't matter the weather. It was playtime for him when other drivers canceled on blizzardy winter mornings. A 4-foot drift across the road was a challenge for this superhero behind the wheel. Hollering to the back of the bus, "Hold on!" his foot pressed hard on the gas pedal. He rammed head-on, nailing the wall of snow, cemented snow, digging deep with his cheering fans in his back, screaming, "Go, go, go!" On the odd occasion, the bus would spin, pushing the rear end sideways, and we'd come to a stop. I stood at the mailbox for my first day of school in grade 9, expecting Mr. Schmidt to be smiling back at me as the bus door flung open to an unfamiliar, somber man sitting in Mr. Schmidt's chair. "Where's Mr. Schmidt?" each of us asked as we climbed up the stairs. "Retired," is all he said, and the door slammed shut behind each of us. We were heartbroken and resentful. Mr. Schmidt didn't warn us, as he hadn't said anything about retiring. He just left without a word, and this imposter took over. We were not kind to our new driver, not in the least, and we made Mr. Carter's life a living hell for the first 3 months of his new job, thinking he would quit and Mr. Schmidt would return. We threw Oreo cookies at the back of his head, made rude remarks, and smoked cigarettes in the back seats. One morning, we told him one of the parents had called and asked us to inform the bus driver their child wouldn't be going to school that day. The anticipation of our prank was satisfied as we watched the girl running to the end of her driveway, waving her arms and throwing her lunchbox to the ground as we drove by at full speed. Mr. Carter came to the house that night to tell Mom what we were doing. I knew Mr. Carter from my school. He was the invisible janitor I'd passed in the hall. He never looked up or engaged with any students. He focused on his task at hand, washing or waxing the long hallway floors. When it clicked and we connected the bus driver as the janitor, it didn't take long to figure out how to torment him at school. If he quit the janitor position, we assumed he would also quit his driving job and Mr. Schmidt would come back. When he left the mop and the bucket unattended, we'd sneak up, upend the bucket, flooding the floors with soapy water. This continued until I was caught and sent to the library for a strap. Christmas was nearing, and I volunteered to collect money from everyone on the bus to buy our new driver a Christmas present. I put little thought into the gift, as I assumed by shows I'd watched on TV that the appropriate gift would be chocolates and a bottle of wine. The day before we broke for Christmas, Mom reluctantly picked up the wine for me. She didn't think the wine was appropriate as a gift from a group of kids. I was just eager to get it over with, wondering why I volunteered in the first place. Mom found Mr. Carter's address in the phone book and took my brother and me to his house after dinner. He too lived in the country, not far from us. We turned into his neatly plowed driveway. Evergreen trees reached into the sky on both sides, blocking out what little daylight remained. And then we saw it. The door hung between patchwork plywood walls in assorted colors and shapes, with a tin roof bent roughly over the walls on all 3 sides to keep the moisture out. Blaine and I gasped. Every Oreo cookie, rude remark, bucket of water, and horrible gesture flooded my mind, and the tears welled up in my eyes, like they are now. We looked at each other, and I knew Blaine was thinking the same thing. We were monsters. We were monsters. I felt the heat on my face, and my heart pounded as we walked to the door and knocked. Slivers of amber light peeked through the door board seams, and rusty hinges gently squeaked as Mr. Carter appeared. He had a warm smile and kind eyes, and I hadn't seen any of this until now. The oil lamp backlit his tall, slender stature, and 6 children and his wife were seated, patiently waiting to return to their interrupted dinner. Mr. Carter invited us in. We gently wiggled the door closed behind us, nudging it back into its hole. A wood stove crackled in the corner. I had a compulsion to flee. Instead, we stood at the doorway, staring at this family who were smiling back at us. Their house was no more than a shack, with no electricity, and I assumed later their water supply was likely drawn from a hand pump outside. "Sorry for interrupting your dinner." This was the kindest thing I'd ever muttered to this man. "We have a gift for you from all the kids on the bus. Merry Christmas." I scanned the room for signs of the holidays, and there were none. No Christmas tree, no lights, not even a wreath on the door. Mr. Carter thanked us as he took the box of chocolates. "We don't drink alcohol, but we will certainly enjoy the chocolates. Thank you. Thank you again." He asked us to regift the wine and promptly introduced us to each of his children and Mrs. Carter. And she asked if we had eaten dinner. We assured them that we had. They were poor, yet willing to share their meal with us. How could they be so loving to us when we had been so awful, tormenting this man daily? I assumed he was a grumpy old janitor, never looking past the mop and bucket. He stole Mr. Schmidt's job. That was all I saw until we stood in his home. Imagine how tough it was for me to write it, never mind read it. The pit in my stomach was growing by the second, pushing its way up through my chest, threatening to burst from the shame and guilt flooding my insides. My ears pounded in time with my heart, and I wanted to throw up. "We have to go," I muttered, swinging around and bolting out the door to Mom's car, where I lost it and burst into uncontrollable sobs. I thought about Mr. Carter every day through the holidays, wondering how he must have felt, putting up with our antics when all he was trying to do was work his 2 jobs to support his family. We learned later that Mr. Carter was a religious man, and so he didn't drink alcohol, nor did they celebrate Christmas in the same way we did. I knew nothing of this man before our trip up his driveway. I knew why I felt compelled to coordinate the gift from a bus full of kids to our driver. I was to be taught the lesson of empathy and kindness. And from that day on, I intentionally shared my lesson with Mr. Carter. I brought him homemade cookies I snuck from the cookie jar. I wished him a good morning and a good night as the bus door folded open and I sprinted down the steps, turning to wave. I stood up to the other kids who picked on the invisible janitor at my school. He was no longer invisible to me.